From Burleson to Venus and Grandview to Godley, this is the voice of Johnson County, JOCO Community Radio.
Why have thousands of aspiring authors teamed up with Christian Faith Publishing to publish their book? Because Christian Faith Publishing is an author-friendly publisher who understands that your labor is more than just a book. We provide authors freedom and flexibility throughout the publishing process, professional book editing, award-winning design, and some of the highest royalty structures in the publishing industry. And as always, you will retain 100% of the rights to your book.
I was looking to find a company that I could trust, one that assisted in the editing process completely.
The most important qualities that I was looking for was a publisher who was honest and upfront, no hidden costs or fees, and owning the rights to my own work.
Christian Faith Publishing will publish, market, and sell your books in all major bookstores, online booksellers, as well as specialty Christian bookstores. Call for your free author submission kit.
800-978-4812. 800-978-4812. 800-978-4812. That's 800-978-4812.
Here's important new information from the Diabetes Solution Center for you, a family member, or a loved one suffering with diabetes. If you have lost your provider, or if you need a provider for diabetic supplies, you may qualify to receive your diabetic testing supplies now with little or no out-of-pocket cost, regardless of your age. All you need is Medicare or private insurance to be potentially eligible. Call the Diabetes Solution Center right now for details. Just takes a couple of minutes. Our friendly, knowledgeable agents will give you free, no-obligation information, handle all the insurance paperwork, and make sure your supplies are delivered directly to your door for free.
Call U.S. Medical Supply 24 hours a day. 800-597-9323. 800-597-9323. 800-597-9323. Call right now. 800-597-9323.
Remember Helen Kerwin? As county commissioner, she raised the tax rate over 95%, increased taxes, utility rates, connection fees, and pushed to give the state even more taxing authority. Well, Helen Kerwin's back, handpicked by the Washington swamp to push a voucher scheme that takes funds away from our local schools and gives taxpayer-funded private school vouchers to illegal immigrants. They'd even go to the front of the line ahead of U.S. citizens and legal residents. It's the very same voucher scheme Dwayne Burns stopped last year before delivering the largest tax cut in Texas history, the strongest border security plan in America, and new laws to protect our kids at school and online. Dwayne Burns is the real conservative who puts our community first. He won't be bullied by powerful politicians or D.C. special interest groups because he doesn't work for them. He works for us. Political ad paid for by the Dwayne Burns campaign.
Let's be honest. Wheelchairs are heavy, bulky, and ugly. If you carry a wheelchair in your car to take care of a loved one, you know how hard it is getting that clunky, old-style wheelchair in and out of your car. Introducing the Feather Chair Wheelchair. At 13 pounds, it's the world's lightest wheelchair. It folds in seconds and fits neatly in your trunk, backseat, or closet, so you can take it everywhere. And it's only available right here. Order yours today and get a free wheelchair case, a $50 value, yours free. The Feather Chair. The world's lightest wheelchair is just $4.99 with easy payments as low as $16 a month. Sorry, no Medicare or insurance accepted. So call right now to order yours.
800-823-5826. 800-823-5826. 800-823-5826. That's 800-823-5826.
Good evening, Johnson County. Welcome to this week's episode of the Texas Transparency Project. I'm your host, Greg Cooper, and here on the Texas Transparency Project, we deep dive local politics, mainly school boards and city councils, but any and all Johnson County politics are on the table. We are most Thursdays at 5 p.m. JOCO Community Radio has many shows and airs 24 hours a day. You can visit the JOCO Community Radio Facebook page to watch shows live or to see replays. Also, you can go to www.jococommunityradio.com, where Apple and Android apps are available. Tune in to get the ins and outs of Johnson County, Texas. Here on the Texas Transparency Project, we focus on 3 relevant topics applicable to residents of Johnson County and do what we can to shed light on how they affect all of us. The 3 are federal and state politics when they're applicable to us here locally in Johnson County, Texas local municipal politics, mainly county governments and city councils, and Texas school politics, specifically school districts, school boards, and school bonds. Regarding school district resources and for help navigating issues with local ISDs, we rely heavily on Families Engaged for Effective Education. Who is Families Engaged for Effective Education? And why do we rely on them? Well, the mission of Families Engaged is to educate parents, citizens, and lawmakers on possible damage of legislation which undermines the family, our public education system, and our constitutional republic. They have a local chapter here in Johnson County and can be reached if needed through their website at www.familiesengaged.org and on Facebook at Families Engaged for Effective Education. Before we get to tonight's guest, which is Cleburne City Council member Derek Weathers, I want to remind everybody that there's a Central Appraisal District meeting tonight, and it has been moved from the regular Central Appraisal District office in Cleburne to the Cleburne Conference Center. It's at 6 p.m. And we've had Craig Hunley and some of the Central Appraisal District Board of Directors on here. Craig Hunley's group, Texas Nonpartisan Political Group from the Horse Barn Property Tax Reform Facebook group, is instrumental on educating people and trying to make people aware of the property taxes, how to navigate them, how to go through appraisal reviews and stuff like that. So that's the Texas Nonpartisan Political Group from the Horse Barn Property Tax Reform. And him and some of his supporters will be at the Central Appraisal District meeting tonight. And it is moved again to the Cleburne Conference Center. It's at 6 p.m. and it will be being live streamed. So support them. There was a lot of support with some city councils and some school boards and getting some of the Central Appraisal District Board of Directors switched out. And and it's important that we support them. Let them know the reality is local municipal politics are slow to change, and you can't get impatient in wanting that change. And it's important that we all remember that change is slow, and to support those that we've been instrumental in putting in place to try to affect change. So that's tonight, 6 p.m. Cleburne Conference Center. So to our show tonight on the Texas Transparency Project, we're remaining right where we have been over the last few weeks in local politics. This time of year in Texas, the spring general elections are in full swing, and here in Johnson County is no different. Spring election season focuses mainly on city council and mayoral elections for those that choose not to do them in November, and school board elections and school bond elections. And other local matters sometimes pop up on the ballots, some municipal utility districts and things like that. But the reality is we're in the middle of the spring election season. And I want to remind everybody that the importance of voting. So April 22nd to April 30th is early voting, and election day is May 4th. So times and locations are different. You can go to the Johnson County elections page to find your specific location and time. That is www.johnsoncountytexas.org/departments/elections-office. You can also just Google Johnson County Texas elections, and you can find out all the information. They have all the orders and where you specifically will vote based on where you're voting. Some of the places that you vote, you need to be mindful that you may have to go to multiple locations. For example, some cities require you to go to the school or where the school is having a voting place for the school elections, and then you need to go to the city voting location to vote for city or county issues. So make sure that you check on all the locations that you need to vote. Traditionally, voter turnout's been very low, and that's a problem. The impact on your life that some of these elections result in can be profound. Watching change either occur or not occur based on a low 15-20% turnout of the population it's pretty disturbing. A small percentage of people shouldn't shouldn't make just shouldn't be the sole decision makers on things like, hundreds of millions of dollars in bonds, who's going to lead a city, who's going to, be a mayor, city council member, et cetera. So do some due diligence. Don't be afraid of getting thrown on jury duty. Get out and exercise your right to vote. So we all love to moan and groan about the way things are, but so many of us consciously decide to not participate. It's unfortunate, and it desperately needs to change. So tonight's guest is part of the solution. He has chosen to be part of the process and invest his time and energy into his community. Is Cleburne City Council member Derek Weathers, and we'd like to welcome him to the Texas Transparency Project tonight. He's a single member District 1. And before we introduce tonight's guest, which is Council Member Weathers, let's talk a little bit about Cleburne. So Cleburne, Texas is a charming city that personifies Southern hospitality. We have a small town feel with big city access. Plus, we have an abundance of recreational and tourism activities, great schools, vibrant neighborhoods, and numerous parks. I say we because I live in Joshua, but I frequent Cleburne a lot. I think it's a great town. It's got a lot of stuff, and it's growing. And we're going to talk about just some of the positive things that are going on in Cleburne. Cleburne has a population of about 33,600 people. They employ a little over 370 employees. They have an annual budget for 2024 of just over $150 million. They have over 560 acres of public space, which is great for outdoor activities and stuff like that. They host over 350 public events each year throughout the city, which is great. There's plenty going on in Cleburne, and there's lots of things that you can get out and enjoy. One of the best local libraries around. Cleburne Library has won awards. We're going to talk a little bit more about that later. But if you're looking for a good public library that has a lot of really cool stuff for kids and families, Cleburne local library is great. They've received an Achievement and Excellence Award for 2 years in a row, which only less than 10% of libraries in Texas actually get that award. My family absolutely loves it. So on to tonight's guest, Councilmember Weathers. Welcome to the Texas Transparency Project, and please tell us a little about yourself and what got you into local politics.
Thanks, Greg. It's great to be here. So I started out I'm an Army veteran. I graduated from Godley High School in 2006, went directly into the Army, was on active duty for 5 years, and did a 1-year tour in Iraq from September 08 to September 09.
Thank you for your service, sir. Appreciate it.
And after that, came home. I was in the reserves for 6 years, worked for my dad for a while. Then I decided it was time to go to college. Went to college, and I got involved in local politics in college. Had a college professor that said, "Hey, you need to go out and do a project." And he wanted the class to work for one of the local parties, either Democrats or Republicans. And being in the Army Reserve at the time, I said I wasn't really comfortable with that. So went to one of the gentlemen that I grew up with, went to church with in Godley, Scotty Brown, and he turned me on to Rick Bailey at Johnson County Precinct 1, and the rest is history. Started really paying attention, got involved in the local Republican Party. I was a precinct chair for a few years, and then I ran for city council in 2018 and lost by 5 votes. So to an incumbent that was a 10-year incumbent and had lived in Cleburne for 40 years. And anytime you hear someone say, "Well, my vote doesn't count," your vote most definitely counts. You need to be out voting, doing your civic duty, because your vote does count. Things pass and fail by 1 vote all the time. So after I lost, immediately after I lost, I said, "Hey, I'm going to run again." In the meantime, I was appointed to the Planning and Zoning Commission for Cleburne, where I went in about 6 months from commission member to commission chair, and chaired the commission until I declared that I was running again in 2020, which Cleburne is the only commission, the only board for Cleburne. If you declare you're running for higher office, it automatically triggers a resignation, which we didn't know that until the city secretary came up to me one day and said, "Hey, you're no longer on the Planning and Zoning Commission." So,
wow,
surprise to me, but that's okay. It was fine. I think that
now you're deciding on their recommendations.
Exactly. So for 2020, I've ran unopposed ever since. So this is my third. This will be my third term. Ran unopposed all 3 terms so far. I've always been an advocate of, there should be races, right? But if there's not, then I'm appreciative that the public, the 7,000 people in my district, trust in me enough for me to run unopposed. So it's really, really a blessing in my opinion, and that they put their trust into me in doing that. So that's a little bit about me.
Right on. Well, thank you for coming on. It's hard to do. This is an hour show, and it's a lot harder than just a couple questions.
Sure.
It is a true testament that you're running. This is you would be up for election right now. But
Yes, sir.
You're unopposed.
Yeah.
And thank you for sticking with it. A lot of people are one and done when they lose. Abraham Lincoln lost every election until he was president.
There you go.
So it says a lot for people that have grit. So I appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. So to learn more about the city of Cleburne, citizens can go to www.cleburne.net. And before we get into the specifics of our show, one of the cool things I get to do is I get to learn a lot about the local communities and schools while researching for my show. And Cleburne is big on recognizing its staff. They have what's called the All-Star Awards program. And we want to give a shout out to Justin Albright. He's the city fleet manager. He's been with Cleburne for 6 months.
Yep.
And he was honored. I honored him at the Cleburne Railroaders. I did some hometown hero work for them. He's a great individual. His wife also works for the city. So thank you for recognizing the employees, especially the ones that aren't in the forefront like you and some of the other staff. So so thank you for that. It's much appreciated.
Yeah, Justin graduated a year earlier than me at Godly. So know Justin since I was, probably 10 years old.
Right on.
And his family.
Yeah.
Yep.
Great family.
Yep.
Awesome family. So, so normally this time of year, we're talking about heated races and all the drama going on. And this gets to be a lot more fun show and a lot more lighthearted, which is great.
Yes.
So as a council member, what is your proudest accomplishment while serving as an elected official for the city of Cleburne?
So I'm going to give the standard politician answer and say I actually have two. So my proudest moment is whenever I get to help citizens with solving problems that they have, whether it be a pothole, easements, alleyways. Alleyways evidently is a big thing. So
potholes too.
Potholes are a huge thing. I just solved one. It wasn't really me. I want to be clear. It's the staff that does this. They have great processes set up. They responded within 24 hours to a pothole complaint. I can't ask for any better than that. So helping citizens solve problems, that's my proudest accomplishment so far. My second one is by far one of the best things I've achieved, which is making sure that our police and fire had step raises over a period of 2 years. Now, that doesn't mean that where we need to be at, right? So there's still some ground to gain, especially the last couple of years where other cities have stepped up their game and paid their first responders as well. So Cleburne will still need to do that. We need to continue to push that. But the biggest one was during COVID, we were able to budget $500 bonuses for our employees. So they worked hard during COVID, and I think hard is an understatement. They worked in dangerous conditions. We won't go into the whole background on COVID. That's not important here.
You're dealing with what everyone else was.
Yeah, exactly. And we just had to get through it together, which is what we did. We got through it together. We were able to get all of our employees a $500 bonus, and that was a blessing. And it really helped these families. I would like to continue that, hopefully, every 2 years if we can afford it. So our employees are our greatest asset. If we don't have those employees, the city doesn't run, whether it be first responders or public works, your wastewater treatment guys. City doesn't run without your employees. So,
absolutely. Yep. And I mean, people during COVID are still flushing their toilets. They're still turning on their faucets. The grass is still getting mowed. The potholes are still getting filled. So
yes,
it is a testament to everyone thinks of nurses, firemen, but let's look at the more frontline workers to maintain the areas we live in. So that's great. You can shout out to them.
Yep.
It's funny you bring up potholes. There's a city that has a really big problem with potholes, and they're blasting people sitting in potholes like it's a jacuzzi. So
I've seen that meme. So so I think everybody in every group on every city gets that shared, but it's how do you respond to the problem, which is fast service, making sure that you get to the problem quickly and getting it solved. That's what we need to do.
And you brought up Commissioner Rick Bailey. He works with a lot of cities to try to mitigate
Yes.
some of their costs. He really, for a lot of the
Cleburne.
smaller cities,
Worked with Cleburne.
Did he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. We've done
He's-
interlocals with precinct 1 with them before.
That's awesome.
So-
Yeah.
oh yeah.
He's really good.
We bought his
about,
old building, if I remember right. So the old precinct 1 barn.
Uh-huh.
Now that is a Cleburne Public Works barn.
Oh,
So,
okay.
Yeah.
All
After
right.
they moved out on 1434, the precinct did. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, it was actually in a perfect spot. We needed it. So
There we
it was
go.
perfect.
Good.
Yep.
So, and he was instrumental. I mean, the commissioner's court in general about the biosolids issue. That was
Correct.
a big
Oh,
deal, and that was tough
that
to
is-
bring out.
That is a big deal. I think is an understatement. I mean,
Yeah.
it is profound. And I immediately called him after. I'm like, all right, what do we need to do? What does Cleburne need to do to protect our water source? And it's clearly our water source,
Sure.
right?
Yeah, we're going to get
we're
into
gonna get into
water
that,
for
by the way.
sure, yeah.
I forgot about
No, it's
we'll
all
get
right.
into
Yeah.
that. So but yes, that was a big deal. The biosolids, hopefully that we can all come together and get a good solution and get rules in place to make sure that those don't stay there forever.
So, Constable Troy Fuller, his precinct office
Yep.
headed that up.
Yes.
I'm one of the few constables' office that has a biosolid division, and really, really solid work,
Yes.
thankless work, and brutal to navigate for those investigators.
Yep.
So they deserve a lot of credit.
Yes, sir.
So we're going to talk about here again. This is a great positive show, and I
Yep.
mean we're going to talk about the state of Cleburne. And I mean Cleburne is a rising star, and I mean it's growing and it's doing it right. And you guys have a really good solid team in there.
Yes.
And it's just nice to do that. So for those, we gave out www.cleburne.net earlier, and they actually have a state of the city document. We're going to walk right through this document and just talk about what's been going on in Cleburne.
Yep.
So Mayor Scott Kane, he's your mayor. He's up for re-election this time. And you guys have what's called a single member district political body, basically, which is it's kind of unique in the sense that most of Johnson County cities are smaller, so a lot of them are unfamiliar with this. But you have 4 council members, and the mayor votes on everything. A lot of the municipalities, the mayor's deciding vote. So talk to us. You were there when this transition happened to SMDs, I believe.
No,
you
it's
weren't.
been SMDs for the longest time.
Is it the redistrict?
Yeah. So we had
tell us how this works.
So it's based on demographics and population. So we had to redistrict because our population was getting a little bit out of balance for the SMD. So some of the SMDs had a little bit higher population than others. So really long process, but long story short, SMD 1 gained some territory. 2, 3, and 4 kind of shrank a little bit on land area, but overall it's a balance. It's about 7,000 citizens per SMD. So right now by land mass, SMD 1 is the bigger landmass by just a little bit. It's not very much. So,
and one of the things that a lot of the smaller communities here, they have place voting, but they really don't have geographical voting. Cleburne has geographical voting. So if you live in a certain area, you're voting for the council member that's going to represent your specific area, which is pretty cool because it gives you a little more intimate feel with the voters, which is great.
Yep.
So one of the big things that
accountability.
Absolutely.
Accountability. That's a big thing.
So probably one of the biggest things that the council does is they adopt an annual budget. So you guys are beginning that process now. Good, responsible school districts or municipalities begin this process early to refine it. Starts in the spring, late spring, goes through the summer. Taxable property values come out. You get some ranges from the comptroller's office in the Central Appraisal District, which allows you to set tax rates. And Cleburne's running about $150 million budget. So talk to us a little bit about how that budget is in alignment with your goals and how you're really trying to launch proactive and price, competitive infrastructure projects and stuff like that, and maintaining the good things in Cleburne. There's a lot of cool stuff going on. So walk us through how that works for you guys.
Sure. So the alignment. So right now our budget is $150 million. A lot of that is driven by a certificate of one of our bond certificates, which was for our wastewater treatment plant expansion. It's about $42 million. So $42.5 million by the time all is said and done, all in. So that was driven by growth. Obviously, we needed to do that. I know that here in the state of the city document, it has alignment. So council's goals maintain, launch infrastructure projects, maintain infrastructure, which is something we need to do and we need to invest in. We do that. Our most prominent infrastructure program is our street maintenance program. So we put about $2.4 million a year back into street maintenance, whether it be mill and overlay or a little bit of light reconstruction, right? The problem, and there's always problems. So the biggest problem is inflation, just like everybody else is dealing with. The amount of road miles we've been able to do whenever we started in 2019 versus now is reduced by half because of inflation. So those are things we have to look at. This is why we have the process. Do we need to put more money into it? Compounding over time. And I think that that's something that we'll have to look at. We'll have to look really hard at. We have a great public works director, does a great job managing the things that he has to manage. Also in the budget, you have to maintain strong workforce, which means police and fire readiness, making sure you're attracting talent for all of your departments, whether it be public works, parks, on down the line. And of course, maintaining our facilities, grounds, equipment, etc. Justin Albright comes into that. He's our new fleet manager.
Awesome.
He maintains the equipment, things like that. All that come to his department. So we have to maintain those. A little bit about the tax rate. Our tax rate right now is about 58 cents per $100 valuation, which if you look at it as a pie chart for your whole tax bill, it's about 30% of your whole tax bill. In that tax rate, there's a little misnomer. So
tax bill being the stuff that goes to county,
yes.
college, the majority goes to school district, so that your entire tax bill people pay.
The vast majority goes to the school district.
Yeah, that's another entity.
That's it. So I know that it says we've reduced the tax rate, and we've reduced the tax rate, but that's driven by SB2, which is
before we go down this road, what the listeners are going to hear right now is transparency, honesty with tax rates, and honesty with budgets and how it works. You're not going to blow smoke.
There's no
which
fluff.
is great.
Yeah.
And this is how this works. When you hear that an entity is reducing tax rates, you need to figure out why and how that's going into play. So explain this, and thank you for being willing to talk about this and not just try to champion look what we did.
Yeah. So lower the tax rate, which is driven by SB2, which is
that's Senate Bill 2. That's prior legislation that's passed during legislative sessions.
Correct. And so basically it says you can't collect more than 3% of the total revenue from your last budget. Without a voter approved tax rate. So you have to go to the voters if you want to go above 3.5% in revenue. Right?
So what happens for everybody listening is these taxing entities work on a budget, and then they get a guideline. They get a left low limit all the way to a right high limit, and they have the ability to set a tax rate within these two limits. One is called the no new revenue, and then the high end is called the voter approval tax rate election. To go above the voter approval tax rate election, you call a voter approval tax, or I'm sorry, to go above the voter approval tax rate, you call a voter approval tax rate election, or a VOT tree. So, and this process is going on now, and it will culminate in end of August, September-ish.
So last year's budget.
Sorry, just trying to make sure everyone understands this long, lengthy, detailed process.
And Greg, that's perfect way to describe it. So let's use last year's budget, fiscal year 24 budget as an example. We went right at the 3.5% revenue raise. However, of that, 513,000 was from new property added. So we have, to put that in perspective, we have about 10,000 units that are currently under construction and platted in Cleburne. Though 3,000 of those are multifamily and about 7,000 are single family.
So when you hear things like growth was going to pay for growth, what Councilmember Weathers is referring to is, as new properties come online, you're transitioning from rural property into some type of living place or business, and that becomes taxed at a much higher rate.
Correct.
Which generates more revenue for the city.
Correct.
Okay.
And last year's budget, we raised a total of about 5.6% more than the year before, right? So, but if you look at it, about 420,000 was from existing. So that's about $12 a year extra, which once again, you only vote for things that you need, right? This budget is probably one of the more fiscally conservative budgets you'll see in Johnson County or anywhere in Texas. And the thing that I'm most proud of is our total debt obligation. The city of Cleburne only has about $880,000 of debt obligation secured by property taxes. So we still have our sales taxes and things like that, but our property taxes, we take very good care of it, and we're very in tune with the voters whenever it comes to debt issuance and what we need to issue debt for.
So as we get ready for our break here, we're talking about debt. So debt would be a bond that was called somewhere in the past, and that bond is being paid off. Cleburne currently with a $150 million budget only owes $800,000, and that's very fiscally responsible.
Out of the property tax that is supported by property tax.
Correct.
So, and just real quick, we do have certificates of obligation, but those are mainly for water projects, infrastructure,
more
which
infrastructure
is what it's supposed to be used for.
Sure,
that's very clear. Certificates of obligation are necessities, not wants.
Right on. Well, after our break, we're here with council members, single member District 1, Mr. Derek Weathers, and we're going to talk about economic development, police department, fire department, and all the goodness going on in Cleburne. We'll be back after the break.
School choice. Sweet-sounding words from sweet-sounding groups like the American Federation for Children. Well, the truth is alarming. These are the people caught marketing private school vouchers to illegal immigrants in Arizona. And they want to do the same in Texas. But Dwayne Burns said no. And that's why they're targeting him in this election. The voucher program they're pushing is a magnet for illegal immigration. Fully qualified to receive these $10,000 vouchers, illegal aliens would go to the front of the line ahead of U.S. citizens. These groups want to replace Dwayne Burns with a rubber stamp, and they've got one in Helen Kerwin. Kerwin has pledged to support this voucher scheme if elected, but we can't let that happen. Dwayne Burns' top priority is border security. He's stopped taxpayer-funded handouts to illegal aliens. And he's endorsed by every law enforcement association in Texas. Political ad paid for by the Dwayne Burns campaign.
If you're trying to quit drinking or doing too many drugs, listen to me. You don't know me and we'll never meet. I had a problem like you once. I drank and used to party a little too much till it got out of control and almost ruined my life. I realized I needed help to fix my problem before it totally destroyed me. If you've tried to fix your drinking and drug problem and you know you can't do it alone, you need to call the National Treatment Advisors. They'll immerse you into a 30-day program to replace your old habits with new habits and totally change your life. And if you have PPO private health insurance, the entire program may be covered. Fix your problem right now before it gets any worse. Get clean. Call now and learn more. 877-247-1581. 877-247-1581. 877-247-1581.
Welcome back, Johnson County. We're here with the Texas Transparency Project. We have Council Member Derek Weathers from Cleburne here, and we're discussing the state of Cleburne. And before we get back to our show, we're going to start back with economic development and all the goodness going on in Cleburne. I want to remind everybody that JoCo Community Radio is a member of EMG, a radio and podcast collective, proudly serving communities like Johnson and Tarrant County. We are live 365 on the TuneIn Radio Network and on our station app. Check out our lineup and more at www.tuneinjoco.com. We thank our valued partners in helping us amplify the voices of our communities. You heard the commercials. Be sure to connect with Todd Hurd and Associates, attorneys at law. Use code JOCO2024. That's code JOCO2024 for 25% off your first order at thetiffy.com. That's www.thetiffy.com for different types of wares and accoutrements for females. And join the Swipe Nation today and save on your credit card processing at swipenationusa.com. That's swipenationusa.com, locally owned and operated. Or reach out to Tiffany at jo.co at jococommunityradio.com for advertising rates as low as $50 a month. That's jo.co at jococommunityradio.com for advertising rates as low as $50 per month. So we're back with Council Member Derek Weathers. We're talking about the state of Cleburne. I want to remind everybody, you still got about 30 minutes to get to the Central Appraisal District Board of Directors meeting. It's at the Cleburne Conference Center. It starts at 6. It will be live streamed. Go out and support all the hard work that Craig Hunley and his Facebook group has done to get better representatives or more in tune with the public's representatives into that. Cleburne had some votes there. One of the individuals that got some votes, he hasn't shown up the last couple of meetings. He's I can't remember the name, but you guys allocated some of your votes phenomenally well, and that's appreciative. And he's really trying to do some good work there to help people navigate the review process, help people understand the process better. So we're having them on right before the Helen Kerwin, Dwayne Burns election to help push the vote out and tell everybody, we'll talk about either the good or bad news as these start to trickle out. So we'll see. But Cleburne is a city that's council and mayor allocated some votes for some of the peoples, and that's great. So thank you for that.
I believe that we allocated, if I remember right, most of our votes to John Wood, if I remember correctly.
He's going to be on in a couple weeks.
Yeah, and John, Dwayne and Amy have done wonderful jobs so far on the CAD board. Really appreciative of them stepping up and even being willing to run. They all three of them came to council. They advocated for our vote. They said, hey, we want to do this. This is why we want to do it. We want to work together by, with, and through the CAD to make sure that the citizens of Johnson County are being taken care of. And Craig Hunley is a huge part of that. And Craig, if people don't know Craig's story, people need to find out about Craig's story.
Absolutely.
So what Craig has done is unprecedented. It really is.
Yeah.
And hopefully it continues. In other words, it is with everything, whether it be it's your city, it's your county, it's your state, it's your country, it's your CAD board. Take control of it.
And what the CAD board's fighting for, the new CAD board, is it's your property. They want you to keep it, be able to keep it. And
absolutely.
He works with Russell Bennett down in the Houston area, and they spend a lot of time dealing with people in Austin, really trying to protect people's ability to keep their homes. And I think eliminate property taxes is a little bit of misnomer. It's more of a replacement of. No one's advocating for no tax, so to speak. It's more of a replacement. But absolutely phenomenal work and deserves lots of credit. And he's a prime example of, if anybody can learn anything from what he's done, keeping your nose to the grindstone and understanding that true political change is a very, very slow, long, drawn out process. And you have to stay vigilant and true to your foundational principles. And he's done that, and it's beginning to pay off. It looks like.
Yes,
he's getting a lot of horsepower with that. So anyways, back to what we're talking about tonight. It's the state of Cleburne, and Cleburne's a great little growing community, and we're going to get into economic development here. One of the big things that you guys are doing with economic development is you guys have what's called the Property Assessed Clean Energy Program, or PACE.
Yep.
Can you talk us a little bit about PACE, and then we're going to get into some downtown rehabilitation grants?
So the PACE program, and it's been a while since we approved it, so you'll have to forgive me if I don't remember everything about it. But basically takes a upfront CapEx investment and provides a rebate to that. So it's a little bit more complicated than that, but
you're
it's
incentivizing people to be more to be more responsible.
Correct.
With what they build. Yeah, that's great.
And it's not, it's not one of those federal ones, energy programs or anything, but it is administered. It doesn't cost the city anything, and it's a benefit to the community. So we decided, yes, we're going to do this.
And it kind of pivoted into some of your downtown rehabilitation grants. You guys are really trying. I mean,
yes,
a lot of people compare Cleburne to like Granbury. Granbury has massive tourist infrastructure and stuff like that. But I mean, Cleburne is really changing the face of how it looks.
Yes.
and really is beginning to take on more of like a Waxahachie Square or a Granbury feel. And it's really cool to go down there.
Yeah. Everything works together, right? So economic development, you have new development, you have our downtown, and you have your small businesses. So we've made a conscious decision to invest in our downtown because it's historic. We need it, and we need it to thrive. So this is all part of Cleburne's heritage and Cleburne's soul is that downtown area, and do whatever we can to make sure we improve it year after year. And one of those things is the facade improvement grants and downtown rehabilitation grants, which have been used heavily. So it's
Sure.
pretty much every council agenda, and it goes on the consent agenda because it's basically a no-brainer. Uh, there's very strict details and reporting requirements for it. So it's not just money given out; it is earned. They have to go do it, and they have to prove that it's being done in order to receive the full grant. So,
And this is gonna
yeah.
bring in a lot more
Brings in a lot more
visitors
business.
and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And it's really cool to watch it.
Yes,
And
sir.
there's
Yep.
been a lot of businesses open up in the last year, a lot of cool restaurants, some businesses, but I think the biggest one everyone's talking about is down at Nolan River Mall, and it's the Hobby Lobby that's coming in. How many questions a day do you get about the Hobby Lobby?
I get about 5 or 6 per week, and mainly it's, are they going to redo the parking lot, right? So that's that, and they did, by the way. They redid the parking lot, and in all seriousness, it is from what we've been told, it's going to be the biggest Hobby Lobby in the country.
I was going to ask you about
Yeah.
that. Is that true?
To our knowledge, it is.
wow.
So it's, I think, somewhere in the neighborhood of 58,000 to 60,000 square feet, which is pretty robust for a Hobby Lobby, obviously. So we're going to be proud to, at least for a little while, maybe be the biggest Hobby Lobby in the country. So
Well,
that's
heck,
great.
as people are heading out to the new Buc-ee's down there,
Oh,
they
yeah.
can stop at the biggest Buc-ee's, biggest Hobby
There you
Lobby,
go.
right? And then we talked a little bit about our before the show about the Cleveland Railroaders and what they've done for the community, and there's a new a residential commercial dining and entertainment complex that's going to be adjacent to La Moderna Field. I've done some volunteer work there. I think it's a great organization, one of the coolest places to watch a sporting event, not a bad seat in the house. And it's going to be called the Railhead. It's going to be 94 acres of mixed residential, commercial dining and entertainment complex. So look for that. Is there a time schedule on that at all?
They pulled plats, and they're doing the main road development, things like that. It's a little bit rough down there, so they've had to put a lot of fill down there.
I was
and all
going
that.
to say it looks
So
a little low.
It's a lot of work, but it's definitely going to pay off in the long run. I think they want to have everything at least built out here in the next year or two, and get to the point where they're actually leasing properties from there. So it took about 6 months for it to fully come together, which is really fabulous. It went from an idea to a plat in about 6 months. So it's moving along fairly quickly for a development that size, and I hope to see it built out even more in the next couple of years.
Yeah, it's good. It's a really cool little place down there. I really enjoyed the time I've spent there. And so we've talked a lot about what sounds like a lot of money. Talked about the tax rate. We've talked about some debt, and it, people start hearing this stuff about economic development and this growth, and they always want to say, "Oh my gosh, that's so much money." But we want to make sure that everybody's aware that you guys increased your sales tax revenue over $3 million in 1 year. So people need to understand that on the back end of a lot of growth, when it's done the right way by the right people for the right purpose, that over time, once all this new stuff is built, that sales tax will continue to grow and will maintain every year. So eventually it'll pay for itself, and then eventually you'll be in the positive over it. So it's great to see that some of the fruit of the labor of your guys' work.
And it's the businesses, right? They drive this. It's Cleburne being welcoming to the business too. But our future is going to be staked on, can we attract more business and drive sales tax, which will help us pay for the things that we need in the near future.
Yeah, so it's nice to see that. So we talked a little bit about residential growth. You talked about 10,000 residential units in various stages of development. So that would be from raw land that at some point is going to be built onto things that are getting ready to have certificate of occupancies put in. You had 212 so far this year, I believe, or last year, 2023.
Yep.
And 10,000. So how are you managing that? Is that going well? Is that where you guys expected it to be? Everyone's kind of trying to figure out how the market's going, but what are your thoughts on that growth so far?
So I think it's actually slowed a little bit from fiscal year 22 to 23. I think by about 100 or so permits. That is one thing that you can keep your pulse on the growth, is the number of platted lots, which right now we're hovering around 7,000 single family lots that are platted to the number of residential permits issued per quarter, right? So if that number starts to get north of about 3 to 4% of the total platted lots, now you're in really growth mode, right? So what do? You make sure that your inspectors that you have the resources they need in order to inspect all these properties. I won't get into, some of the developers we have, you have D.R. Horton, Antares, Impression, etc. We need to make sure we hold them to the promise they made, which is to provide quality housing to Cleburne. So, and that means getting our inspectors the resources they need to do that, and getting more inspectors.
It's I don't sit on that side of the dais, but it's got to be difficult because you don't want to slow down growth.
No,
but you also need to manage it responsibly.
Yes.
And it's got to be a fine line.
And how you manage that is your zoning. So we redid our zoning code a few years ago, and now it's probably time to relook at some of the finer details of the zoning and look at some of the square footages, things like that. Where this growth came from, the catalyst was what we called, it was a 380 development agreement called the 1,000 Home Program. So we've obviously moved way past that. And what we want to do is we want to make sure that we manage that growth well, which means getting probably some more higher quality houses in there, higher quality builders, things like that. And that's what Cleburne, that's what has been expressed to me is what we need. So we're going to start looking at that. And we have a good planning and zoning commission that is very detailed and will help us do that.
Good to hear. And you see lots of homes going up. So one of the things that you guys talked about in your economic development is as a future goal is an updated sign ordinance. That seems like an odd thing to be on there. Now, I've heard some complaints about some of the signs being really low and stopping some view, but I'm not sure if that's what it's about. But what is this updated sign ordinance that's going on?
So the sign ordinance we have now is probably just a little generic and rigid. It's not bad, but times have changed, and what we need is our businesses and especially their marketing need the flexibility to put decent signs out, to put different signs out. And technology has changed. It's not just some cardboard sign in the road. You have banners, you have the sale flags and things like that. So we want to make sure that we give
Sounds like when you're challenged for an election, you need a fancy. I'm just kidding.
I don't know. I got to find a good marketing person. You know anybody? But what we want to do is we want to make sure we give businesses the flexibility, such as our Chamber of Commerce. We want them to be able to promote events, things like that. We want businesses to be flexible. And also what it'll do is it'll make sure that we regulate the LED signs, things like that could be bright at night. We want to make sure we control that. So
fair enough.
Yep.
So we're gonna get on the police department and fire department and EMS here. Last year you guys had almost 75,000 calls for service.
Yep.
17,000 911 calls, almost 3,000 reports entered. And the best thing with this is a growing city. You guys actually decreased crime against persons by almost 6%. That's a great stat with a growing community. That's something to be really, really proud of. And it's you've had 11 consecutive years of a decrease in personal crime as you've been growing.
Yep.
I think that's phenomenal. You've added some 4 police recruits, some 4 dispatchers, 10 vehicles. And, here again, you talk about the budget and you guys are not having to call a Vatry.
Yep.
This is where people need to look at how a municipality is growing. They're not calling for additional taxes to go above their little 3.5%. Yes, yet they're still across the board growing exponentially. So that's really, really a testament to managing your budget well. So walk us through the police department stuff.
Well, let's talk about those vehicles for a second. A lot of those were carryover from COVID delays. So there's a lot of, and even now I'm dealing with it, at the business where I work at, is there was a lot of delays whenever it comes to putting out those vehicles. So you had budget carryover from the year before. So that's part of it. But yes.
And here again, thanks for the transparency there. Thanks.
Yeah. So let's, and to be clear, we do have a CapEx replacement policy for our vehicles. So
CapEx, tell us what
capital
is.
expenditure.
Capital expenditure.
Yeah, that is a capital expenditure that you need to, basically those vehicles depreciate over time and you need to replace them. And you replace them because you don't want to spend the higher maintenance costs. Invest in upfront CapEx to make sure that your OpEx or your operational expense is kept low over time, which means it takes care of the taxpayer's dollar better over time. As far as the police department, our focus is making sure, once again, police and fire readiness, which readiness, it comes from military, right? You want to make sure that your soldiers are ready to deploy without having any distractions. So that means making sure they have the best equipment, that we adjust the salaries where they need to be at, and bring in the best talent. That's what we need.
Excuse me for not knowing the answer to this question, but is there just one Cleburne police station? Do you have you gone to substations yet?
We have one police station, and one of the things that we'll be looking at in the future, especially in the next 2 to 4 years, is a new police station, new fire safe or new police and fire safety building. What that looks like, not sure yet, but we're in the early planning stages of that now. Basically, whenever your county sheriff says, "Hey, the police department doesn't look much different than it did whenever I was a rookie, whenever I was 5," and he's probably going to kill me for making that comparison. But
you're
it
only
is what it is.
27, so it's okay, right?
Yeah, I'll take that too. Oh, thanks, Greg. I appreciate that. We want to make sure that in order to recruit and retain, part of that is having good facilities, and we need to make sure we invest in those facilities, and we will.
I'm going to give a shout out to Mayor Fletcher right now. He approved a new police station and when it started going over budget with escalation, and he's really managed that well. So, so if you guys run into those problems, he might be a good resource.
Definitely.
He had to navigate that. So, so fire and EMS, with a growing community, you have, more needs for emergency services. You guys had 6,200 calls for service, 4,100 EMS calls. Lots and lots of training, which is good. Keep those guys on their game. That's a very, very perishable skill. You had over 3,000 patient transports and 150 fire calls. You also received a new fire engine. Walk us through that. Keene just received one. I know that was a huge pride for their city. Tell us about that.
So our new fire, once again, with your vehicle replacement policy, need to bring in new technology every few years to make sure that you stay up and make sure that your firefighters have the best that they need. And it was a replacement. So brand new fire engine, I think it was about $1 million. And yes, that's a big number. I know that some people may shock some people, but it's exactly what we need. It's a huge fire truck. It took about 2 years to get delivered. Some of the other things that we have, like our new ambulances, what we'll eventually have is another ambulance crew that will be coming online in July of 24.
Is that on top of the two? Because you had 4 in the last 2 years.
So it'll be one more. Okay. So we'll have basically 3. And we have 2 right now, 2 paramedic crews. We'll have 3 by the time this is done with 2 reserve ambulances. And then one of the things that's on here is the ISO rating. Your ISO rating is basically it affects your insurance.
So this
coverage.
Okay. Okay.
So it's Insurance Services Organization regrade. If we can move from an ISO 2 to an ISO 1, it'll lower all of our commercial and our residential insurance rates. So
this is homeowners insurance
Correct.
rates.
And commercial buildings
too.
as
Okay.
well. So once again, that we're going to need to probably add another fire station to do that. So
you guys. You guys brought in a fire consultant to evaluate current operations and plans.
Yep.
Has that been beneficial for you guys?
Absolutely.
You feel that's good bang for your buck?
I think that we're on the right track. This is why we bring them in, is to make sure. I've seen there's a lot of debate on when to use consultants where, but basically it's, do you have the time? Do you have the expertise? And if the answer to those is no at any time, then you bring a consultant in and spend the money to make sure you know what you're doing in the future and to take care of the taxpayer dollars to do it. So that's why we brought him in. We identified need a new fire station and a few other milestones to get to that ISO 1 regrade, which is really what we need to be doing.
So we're going to brief through a little bit of public works here. We're going to probably end the show with water. That's a hot topic in Cleburne. But before we get to the wastewater treatment plant and how the water availability, let's really quick talk about the Sparks Road connection and the West Loop reuse project. Or actually, West Loop is part of water.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the Sparks Road connection and how that's benefiting local businesses, and then we'll get on to the water.
Absolutely. Real briefly on the Sparks Road connection. This was a joint effort between the county. It was a TIF project. So tax increment fund. In other words, it was basically a sales tax between the city and the county that helped pay for this bridge. It's about a $4 million bridge. Of that $4 million, about $1.4 million was covered by the U.S. Economic Development Administration under the Department of Commerce. So going out, getting funds to bring to Cleburne and making sure that we're using those funds correctly. What that does is it connects our industrial park to the CTP directly, which will open up we have about 336 acres of industrial land that is available for sale. And I think what that will do, that will provide a catalyst to expand some of the businesses there and to bring in new business.
All right. So before we get on to water, I want to throw a bone out to Parks and Recreation. You guys completed a renovation at Bradshaw Park and West Hill Park.
Yep.
You finalized a future layout of Winchester Park. You're building a new skate park at Hewland Park. This is all stuff that's coming to Cleburne, guys. Hopefully there'll be more events than the 350 they already are doing, which is great. You had renovations done at the 67 Monument. You did 5 athletic fields at a sports complex, 6 diamond infields at the old sports complex. Links, the golf links is exceeding $1 million in revenue, which is great for the city.
Yep.
You did some Booker T. Washington renovations to the gym floor. You've enhanced improvements at the Splash Station, one of my kids' favorite places. And the Leyland Museum of History, some cemetery renovations, Cleburne Conference Center. You guys, it's really a lot going on with recreation in Cleburne. Yep. I can't wait for the skate park. I think that's really cool. So, but we got to get onto water. So
my favorite topic.
Well, and you're very knowledgeable about it. Where do you want to start with water? We could talk about the West Loop reuse project. So you're in the process of a major wastewater expansion.
Yep, that'll be complete here in another couple months.
And one of the big things that people need to understand is this is unique to Cleburne that not a lot of municipalities have. You guys are the sole owner manager of your water rights.
Of our infrastructure
of water. Okay.
So water is a big, deep rabbit hole. I can tell you all about it. So, but basically, let's start with our usage. So we use about 11,500 acre feet of water a year. So about 6,000 of that comes from Lake Pat, and Lake Pat has a 26,000 acre foot capacity, and then the rest comes from Lake Aquila, which is we pull about 5,000 acre feet out of there through a 31-mile pipeline, which we wholly own.
So part of the water rates is to maintain all of that stuff coming from those bodies of water getting
and
to
the dam,
faucets.
which means the dam, the spillway, all of the underground infrastructure as well.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and where the West Loop reuse comes in is whenever it's online initially, it'll provide another 2,500 acre feet per year, which is about half of what we pull from Aquila, which is a huge multiplier for us. And then as we come online with some other improvements, that'll eventually increase to 5,000 acre feet, which is the equivalent of what we pull from Aquila. Also, Cleburne, and a lot of people don't know this, but Cleburne has the water rights to 9,700 acre feet of water in Lake Whitney. So accessing that's an issue.
And you're not using that right now. So this is for the future.
Yeah, this is for the future, but we're trying to work with some entities to make sure that, ways to access that water. And some of the estimates I've seen to treat the water, you can't just take Whitney water and dump it into the lake. We would have done that already if it was that easy. But it's about between $75 and $150 million to build a treatment plant, desalinization pipeline from Whitney to Cleburne, which is what it is. It's still worth it having those water rights. So big deal.
So we've talked a lot of technical data about acre feet and different pipelines and all that. But I mean, the reality is the last couple of years we've had some massive droughts in the summer. I mean, I've had cracks as big as my head in the ground. And we go on this water restrictions where you can only water your yard certain amount of time. So people see that type of stuff and they become concerned about the water availability.
Correct.
How is Cleburne looking on supporting the community, the growth long term? And do you guys have a good plan in place? Walk us through that.
That's available on Cleburne.net. There's a water presentation, and all of those things are access to water. We have plenty of access to water, and then working with regional partners in order to make sure that we increase that access and we increase that availability over time. It takes basically about 5,000 homes can be serviced per 1,000 acre feet. So we have plenty of capacity right now, even in a drought situation. And I'll touch on the drought, some of the restrictions a little bit. It's not just about conservation. It's also about your utility infrastructure loading. If you can plan out your utility infrastructure loading, it helps you reduce the amount of infrastructure you have to put in, which means it reduces the cost onto the taxpayer. So that's a big reason why we do it. Yeah, we want to conserve. We want to make sure that we're incentivizing conservation and water, but it's not just about that. And I just want to make that clear with everybody.
So Cleburne's in good shape for water. You guys have a
Yep.
plan for the future. How, as we're ending the show, how can Cleburne residents get in touch with you if they have questions? You're super accessible, and that's awesome.
I'm on Facebook, derek.weathers@cleburne.net, and my phone number is 719-339-9055. Call me anytime.
Derek.weathers@cleburne.net and 719-339-9055. We will see you next week with Godly ISD school board candidates and to talk about a massive bond that's going to crush a community if it passes. We'll be back next week. Stay safe, Johnson County. Don't let the humidity kill you.
From Burleson to Venus and Grandview to Godly, this is the voice of Johnson County, Joco Community Radio. Attention all business owners and creative minds. Do you need a unique and personalized touch for your products? Look no further than Romika Laser Engraving and Custom Designs. I'm Ron Phillips, co-owner of Romika Designs. We offer custom laser engraving services for a variety